What's the difference between good things and bad things? This is a question I've wondered about since I was a little kid, but it's surprisingly hard to put your finger on it. I'm not asking this question in a moral sense, but rather experientially. What differentiates good sensations from bad sensations? The answer is just the thoughts that accompany them. All sensations are inherently neutral. This is not something you should take my word for or simply believe. It's really something that you can go and notice for yourself. So when you meditate, you can notice various sensations that you dislike. It could be an emotional sensation. It could be the feeling of itching. It could be discomfort in your posture. But whatever it is, it has this accompanying web of thoughts of, oh, I don't like this. Please make it stop. This is terrible. I hate it. It's not always verbalized in such clear English as what I'm saying now. A lot of the thoughts fly under the radar, and this makes them even trickier to deal with because when they fly under the radar, you just kind of de facto believe them. But in point of fact, what's happening is you're having some sort of mental reaction to a neutral sensation. But the thoughts in and of themselves are also not neutral. The thoughts are about a sensation, and they tell you that the sensation is bad. But the thoughts themselves are even more ephemeral and insubstantial than the sensation itself. And so you have this pairing of a neutral sensation and these neutral thoughts. And so there's nothing there that's intrinsically bad. The only appearance of negativity is when these thoughts go unrecognized and you just believe them. So this is why sometimes suffering is referred to as ignorance. Not ignorance in a pejorative sense, but ignorance as ignoring. So there's some aspect of your experience that's being ignored. And so in this case, it's the thoughts. So the thoughts you're ignoring, not necessarily consciously, they're just not something you quite notice. And in not noticing them, they create this apparent suffering. But as soon as they're recognized, you just cut through this suffering and the suffering dissolves entirely. Now, this is not so easy to do. And this is why meditation is a useful practice and it's something that you should do regularly. But if you can cut through these sensations and cut through this illusion of misery and suffering, you will be much happier. In fact, noticing the difference between positive and negative sensations, there's an unusual corollary, which is that consciousness itself is positive. Negativity is created by resistance of the mind. Is that there's some feeling that you have, and then there's this little voice in the back of your head saying, this is bad, I don't like it. But as soon as you bring that voice into the foreground and you just notice everything as it is, then what you're noticing is in and of itself neutral. And so there's no additional voice saying it's bad, or if there is, you just bring that into the foreground. And so since consciousness by its nature accepts whatever's there, consciousness itself cannot reject a thought or a sensation. By its nature, it's absolutely accepting of everything that appears. Then there's no fundamental resistance to anything that appears. And since there's no fundamental resistance, in this sense, every negative feeling or sensation is actually made out of a kind of positive substance. And so consciousness has this intrinsic positivity to it. And so you don't need to become happy. You don't need to become enlightened. You simply need to notice the intrinsic positive nature and blissful nature of consciousness. This sounds like some sort of weird hippie nonsense, but I assure you it's not. It's something that you can genuinely notice, and when you notice it, the effect it can have on your life is profound. Now, Once you notice it, it does not mean that you're going to notice it at all times of day. You may notice it briefly and then lose sight of it again, but just keep returning to it again and again, and the habit will build up and become stronger and stronger.